Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. Has some cold brew with cold foam. It's a little bit more cold foam at the moment. Gotta live our lives, right? Sorry for the lighting. It's pretty gross and gloomy outside, but we're just gonna truck on through. Today's video is going to be a book review on A Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. This was a fairy loot book, but also one of my anticipated releases of this year. It's about dragons, so I was pumped. Oh, also, I got this from Modern Magic Emporium. It's so cute. Love it. So this book was interesting, and it wasn't what I expected it to be. So it's kind of pitched as like a dark academia dragon novel, where the main character is trying to be a dragon linguist. And it's in London, 1923, and the main character is planning on just getting an internship to be a dragon linguistic and study dragon languages, and that's it. But by midnight, she has started a civil war. Her parents are arrested, and her sister is missing. So the main character, Viv, is kind of scrambling to figure out what to do, and so she's offered this like mysterious job that may help her and her family get out of trouble, and so she takes it. And then she discovers that she's being recruited as a code breaker to help the war effort. If she succeeds, her family goes free. If she fails, they die. She thinks this is doable, but there may be more secrets and things that they aren't telling her. So this book was really interesting. It felt more like a World War book with a class system than a dark academia setting. Maybe that's just me and my personal interpretation of it. But it's kind of interesting because the main character is a little bit unlikable. So you go into it and she is kind of bought into the society. You know, she doesn't know anything else. She hasn't really experienced anything else. She is second class, which means that she has a lot more privilege than third class. But she's also not first class, where it's like very posh and silver spoon-esque and everything is given to you. She has enough. They're doing fine. And one day she has it's a professor, I believe, over for dinner and to interview her to potentially go into the college to learn dragon languages. And her parents make a couple of statements that are unpopular, and then the professor looks through their things and finds out that they are traitors because they are part of the rebellion and arrests them. And so Viv is kind of scrambling and she's like, "You're wrong, like they could never do this, they're not rebels." She puts her sister with some like family friends, if not family, and she releases this dragon that is imprisoned to try to burn down a government building. This is like in the beginning of the book, it's wild. And then she is also branded a traitor because she was just trying to save her family. So the main character has some interesting personality traits where she will basically do anything, even if it's wrong, to protect her family. And with all of the rest of the elements of this book was kind of interesting and makes her kind of unlikable for a long time. So in this world, like I said, there's a class system, but also the dragons are considered their own race, obviously, but they could speak. They could speak to you, like they could speak English, they could speak lots of languages. So if you learn the other languages the dragons can speak, you can communicate with them. It's very interesting. They could be like teachers, they are like parts of society. But they used to be part of society a lot more until they had this like war and then peace treaty, this peace agreement. Now the dragons are being very oppressed, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like, this side thinks that they're being oppressed and this side thinks that this is the only way to have order, and it's that kind of oppression and brainwashing. And it's very interesting the way the author did it because it's dragons and not humans, but you can see a lot of similarities in a lot of different things. So the dragons are kind of being oppressed and abused, but the lower class humans are also being oppressed and abused and not given as many chances as the other classes. There's a lot of politics and espionage and conversations about right and wrong. So for instance, she releases this dragon that was held captive, and she was basically held captive by a device that would instantly kill her if she got out of a certain boundary. And the dragons are obviously upset about this oppression and don't think it's right. And it gets into, I'm not going to tell you everything because that would spoil like the whole book, but it gets into a lot of interesting like political science type things, or what do you do when your government tells you that this is the only way? It almost kind of seems like a regime that's vilifying one group of people or one race of people to keep you in order, or to be like, we have a common enemy, so therefore we're the good guys, you know what I mean? So they kind of paint the dragons as dangerous and something to be controlled instead of integrated into society again. So they are held in prison or prisoners a lot of the time, or they're brainwashed into thinking this is what they have to do. And so is the main character. So the whole time, so going out the whole book, she's doing like these things and helping the war effort, but the war may be very sinister and very immoral. While the rebellion may not be as bad as she thinks it is. So it's interesting to see the character growth in this, but also the character does lean, like I said, towards doing what it takes to keep herself and her family safe, even if that means burning the rest of the world. Even if that means all of these other people are going to continue to be oppressed and hurt, as long as her family's safe, she's okay with that. So there's a lot of interesting tension you get in this book. I would say it's very political and very thought-provoking. The main character's not honorable or likable, like I was saying, but she is an interesting perspective to follow and to see the development and the thought processes from start to finish. I did really enjoy this book, and I found a lot of the quotes and conversations very meaningful and thought-provoking. I didn't love the ending, but it made a lot of sense. I like the different characters and that they're kind of in this like war camp almost, and they're told like you need to break this code, and if you break this code of this dragon language, then we can use it to spy on them and it'll help us in the war effort to win the war. While the other people in this camp kind of thing are told, you're the aviation crew, so you need to help us build a plane to be able to fight these dragons. And another crew is like a zoologist type of a group where they're told like you need to figure out the dragons. So they all have this like these things that each party of these humans that are taken to this camp, they're all kind of like criminals. I guess I should back up a little bit. They're all criminals, these kids, like Viv and all these other ones. They're criminals for some reason or another. And they're all sent to this Bletchley Park kind of camp. It's this like glass house. And they're put in those different groups of tasks there to complete. And there's multiple people for each group. But they're using it as like, because you're a criminal, instead of killing you, instead of sending you to this camp, instead of imprisoning you, you have to do this task for us, and if you succeed, your family will live. Your family goes free. You will go free. Those types of things that we kind of mentioned already. So they're all working on those different facets of it, and Viv is in the code-breaking section. But it's also kind of sinister how it is done, because they kind of pit them against each other, and then when they don't do it fast enough, they tell them, like, just kidding, so because you're not doing it fast enough and you don't seem to have enough motivation, only one of you that solves the problem will go free. So it's very like, it's wicked. It's wicked and it's sinister and it's sad, and you know things like that have happened in wars. I feel like I'm all over the place, but I'm trying to tell you enough to get you intrigued in the book without spoiling everything. But I liked the espionage elements and the political elements. It's very thought-provoking, it's deep, it's sad. I would say there's not a lot of like things you're like, woohoo, about this book that's very uplifting. But it does have a lot of deep conversations and perspective shifts and things to think about when you are just fixated on what you believe to be right or true versus what is actually happening in the world. And I mentioned this before, but there's a lot of good quotes in this book. There was one chapter in particular where one of the characters is having a conversation with a dragon, and the quotes out of that chapter, I thought, they may not be like, you may have heard something like that before, but I thought they were so powerful. And I just really appreciated them. Actually, I wrote a lot of them down, so let me get those. Okay, sorry about that. So a couple of the quotes, there's like a really good quotes in chapter 22 with another character, but something that I thought was really interesting is they said that fear breeds hatred. I agree with that. If you are good, then your goodness and those choices are not compatible. And this is talking about if you believe yourself as a person to be good rather than evil, then you have to make good choices. And then forgiveness is suffering redeemed. I really liked all of these, and also the elements of making mistakes and owning up to them, but also not letting those mistakes become your entire personality and letting that become your identity, but rather being like, I can redeem this and I can continue to change as a person. I really liked this. I think it's a really powerful and deep book and sad book. I don't think it's a super adventurous, super fun book, but I think it's good. And I didn't expect it to be the way it was, but I'm not mad about it. I would say I didn't love it as much as I would have loved it if it was just a really cool adventure story or something, but I think it has its own merit for being different, and I'm glad it was. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and I know this is kind of like rambling thoughts about it, but I did really enjoy this, and if it sounds like something you would like, I would definitely give it a shot. I would say it's pretty easy to read. I found myself wanting to pick it up, even if it wasn't super like crazy and intense and exciting. But I wanted to find out what happened in the story. I was curious about how everything was going to go down. And honestly, I feel like she set it up in a way where the story wraps up, but also it could continue if you wanted it to. I don't really know where it would go, so I doubt she will, but she could potentially. It was very good. I would love to know the author's inspiration for this story. The ending was sad and not what I was hoping for or expecting, but it was good. So those are my thoughts on A Language of Dragons. I did enjoy it. Hopefully you will enjoy it as well, if you read it. Well, that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.